and happy to be here. I'll briefly share my experience in working in the refugee settlements in Uganda, where we have families in extreme situations. These are families that have crossed international borders as a result of war and have settled in Uganda. So I would want to start by pointing out some of the nature of households or families. I will talk more about households, the way we call it in our context, but these are families that we have in the refugee operation. We have child-headed households, children who are the ones heading homes. We have child carers. These are children who are the ones taking care of their elderly grandparents. We have households providing alternative care to unaccompanied children and separated children and children at risk. In this situation, there are children who come cross international borders without their biological parents, not even their relatives. So they stay with households who have opened up their homes, but completely without any blood relation. Then we have separated children who live with their relatives. We also have different kinds of children at risk. We have single-headed households. Already, Carol mentioned the issue of single mothers. We have many female-headed households, but we also have male-headed households. Those who have separated with their spouses during displacement, including majority who lost their spouses. So they take care of the children in the home single-handedly. We have children under care of the elderly. Pastor talked very strongly about the importance of grandparents. Now, grandparents are very key in our context because some of them have come along with these children and they provide care for the children. Now, these are the kind of children, the kind of families we have in the refugee context. It is very complex and it calls upon the community, but also the stakeholders, the partners, to take some very critical interventions to ensure that the family or the household is kept intact with and able to provide the basic responsibilities. Now, because of the nature of these families we have, in the refugee operations, we have what we call foster banks, where families, some very clean-hearted families, open up their homes to receive children and take care of children that they do not have any blood relation with. I would want to say that 80% of these households are Christians, very strongly rooted in Christ. And that is one of the pushing factors that helps them to understand the importance of being a good Samaritan, taking care of these children without expecting any reward. We do a lot of training of caregivers and the foster care on positive parenting. I'm happy the earlier speakers really spoke very strongly on this. We do counseling for these household members, the children and the caregivers. Already, the war that these people have gone through have brought a lot of traumatic experience. The separation that spouses have experienced, the children who have lost their parents and separated with them are very traumatized. So a lot of counseling sessions, both individual and group counseling, are always conducted. We have routine monitoring of children under alternative care. This is done by the parasocial workers, what we call the child protection committees, community members who are also trained to monitor and ensure the well-being of the children who are being taken care of. We also do joint monitoring of these households. Skills training of parents and caregivers in tailoring, in handling small businesses. All these are done based on the assessment that is conducted for each and every household. We have economic support to the most vulnerable. Some of these families, based on the assessment, are supported economically with cash grants and conditional cash grants to meet their basic needs. I would want to lament that based on the current situation, this intervention has been greatly impacted that already many households are really undergoing very difficult situation. And this impact now falls more on the children, and it has a lot of adverse effects that the earlier speakers also mentioned. Material support are also provided, and these ones are equally affected. We have supervised independent living. We have, for example, a number of young mothers, teenage mothers, who would not want to be fostered. So they would decide, based on their assessment, they would decide to be on their own. So what we do is that the parents, the households that are next to them are trained and requested to supervise their stay so that their well-being is maintained. We also have community awareness. Looking at the current situation, things are getting very hard in the refugee operation. So community awareness, so that each and every member of the community understands that they have a role to play in supporting the next vulnerable family, the neighbor, the next vulnerable child. It is not a one person's role. It's a community responsibility. So this is one of the ways in which we strengthen families, because if everyone takes it as their role, then no child would sleep hungry. If it is eating once, everyone eat once in a day. Formalization of the alternative care. In coordination with the government, the probation officers, there is a procedure that makes the household taking care, the family caring for the child without a blood relation, more comfortable and confident of what they are doing when some agreements have been signed. So that even when the parents at some point come to join this child, it's not about how did you get my child. The procedures are very clear. So this formalization has also created a lot of confidence on the people. In the refugee operation, I would like to reiterate that strengthening families is something that has been a cornerstone in child protection, but also ensuring the well-being of the different kinds of families. Already one of the earlier speakers mentioned some of the positive impact. In the refugee operation, children are nurtured into responsible and productive adults. These children who are in the families where their parents and caregivers have been trained on positive parenting, they have easy access to education, but also their retention level in school is higher. There is reduced exposure to risks of violence against children. There is improved family cohesion. The kind of communication that exists between the children and their caregivers and their parents is always a very harmonious one, full of love. And this has reduced a lot of violence in these households. There is timely access to education, health, because the foster care, the caregiver is there to monitor the child and ensure that this child access medical care. Men's involvement in these patriarchal societies, men's involvement in parenting is very low. But I would want to confidently say that when these families are strengthened, are trained, the men take up a bigger percentage of their role in parenting. Improved participation in decision making. These children are given opportunity to share their views. Their best interest is always assessed. And you see, in those households, everybody has something. The decision making is not just from the head of the household, but every person is consulted. Improved household income, I would not dwell much on that. Then improved sense of safety for the children, for the men, and for the women. What do we learn from this? There are very critical things that in the refugee operation we have learned. Community involvement from the onset brings ownership in the strengthening process. So at every point, community has to be involved. From the time the refugee arrive in the settlement, they are brought up in this so that they own it and they do not think that it is the work of the government. It's only the work of the partners, the UN and the other agencies. Collaboration and coordination is very key, because different stakeholders coordinating effectively has helped to avoid duplication. At this point where resources have reduced, we are working round the clock to ensure that no duplication takes place so that the families, the vulnerable families and children are reached. Conducting parental sessions with alternative caregivers has brought a lot of protection for the children. And another key lesson is that monitoring of these households or families by stakeholders ensures the well-being of the children and the caretakers. I just want to reiterate that as much as these challenges may also be in the national side, in the hosting communities, the refugee communities have been hit hard. And it is our prayers that community takes up and owns up part of this, but also other avenues opens up for these households to be supported. Thank you very much.